Vancouver Canucks have signed restricted free agent goaltender Arturs to a 2-year contract. The 23-year-old Latvian started 10 games for the Canucks in the postseason, going 5-5, 2.91 goals against, .898 save percentage after Thatcher, Demko, and Casey DeSmith both suffered injuries. Gives me a good chance to catch up with my friend, our TSN Hockey analyst, Frankie Corrado. So they get Silovs done. The World Hockey Championship hero, Frankie. From what you saw from Silovs in the postseason, would you consider this duo with Demko to be one of the best in the National Hockey League right now?
Probably in the top third, Jay, but I'm not going to say that it's a top 3 or a top 5 tandem in the NHL. Like, just by default, having Thatcher Demko as your starting goaltender, you're going to be considered, one of the best goaltending duos. But Arturs Silovs is still a relative unknown when it comes to what he can do over the course of a regular season. He only played 4 regular season games for the Canucks last year. Most of the regular season for him was spent in the American Hockey League. He did play well in the postseason when called upon, and that's great. But now it's different. When you come back, there's expectations. There's a 2-year contract involved. And one of the big things that the Canucks are going to have to deal with this year is, can you find a way to maybe limit the workload of Thatcher Demko so that when playoffs come around, like, this guy's actually available for you, because he can be so good. He can steal you games, he could steal you a series, but he's not available to do so. So Arturs Silovs is going to have a significant amount of responsibility this season to not just be a backup, not just be a guy who sits in the weeds, to be a guy who actually contributes. And if that is the case, and he plays well, and Demko plays well, then yes, that's going to be considered one of the best duos of goaltenders in the NHL.
Frankie, you and I have talked about Nick Ehlers a ton. This might as well be the Nick Ehlers show. And we talked about the Carolina Hurricanes as a possible landing spot for Nick Ehlers. FanDuel originally on Tuesday had the Hurricanes as the favorite to land Ehlers. Now the Jets are the favorite to hold on to Ehlers. Interesting. But you said if you were Kevin Cheveldayoff, you would want Marty Necas in return as part of a package. It appears the Canes maybe trying to mend fences with Necas and trying to hold on with him. So FanDuel obviously feels Ehlers might just end up back with the Jets. The way things have quieted down the last couple of weeks, Frankie, do you think that's a possibility? Would you be surprised if Ehlers ends up with Winnipeg to start next season?
No, Jay, I wouldn't be surprised. And the thing, if you're Winnipeg and if you're going to try and move on from this guy, you're going to need an upgrade offensively. It's not like you're going to move on from Nick Ehlers and it's like you're going to bring in someone, I don't know, you're going to bring in a checker, someone who's bigger, someone on the back end. Like, I feel like if you're going to move on from scoring, this team needs to find a way to score goals. And that's a guy who gives you 25 goals. He gives you 65 points, maybe on a good year. And there might even be a little more offense, that still needs to be uncovered for Nick Ehlers. So, the fact that, FanDuel thinks he's going to be back with the Jets, that's great. The Jets, could use a player like him. It's a good thing they have him. And if they were going to move on from him, it would be to get an upgrade offensively. If that is not available to them, then it doesn't make sense to move on from that player. And Nick Ehlers, he's been fairly consistent in that 50, 55, 60-point range. And if there can be a little more there, that would be a welcome sight for the Winnipeg Jets.
Let's talk about Quinton Byfield, Sudbury Wolves legend like yourself. Signs a 5-year contract extension worth $6.25 million per season. It sounds pretty good, but then you look at the fact that he was drafted 2nd overall in 2020. Tim Stützle and Jake Sanderson were drafted after Byfield. They got 8-year extensions for $8 million a season. Are you surprised, Frankie, that the Kings got Byfield for that term and for that number?
So the way I see it, and I'm not surprised that the Kings got him for that term and that number, because really what they've done is they've walked him right into unrestricted free agency. So they probably knocked a little bit off of the AAV, so they're not paying him what, the Senators are paying their guys in the $8 million, or not even paying what Slavkovsky's getting paid by the Montreal Canadiens at, roughly $7.6 million. They get it down into the low 6s, but the sacrifice is that now in 5 years' time, this guy is going to be an unrestricted free agent. And really what he did, he kind of, he's going with this different approach where he's going to hedge his own bet, bet on himself a little bit and say, I can maximize my value in 5 years' time, not have to tack on an extra 3 years at, $7.5 to $8.5 million and see if he can really explode here on his next deal. He's taken a little bit of a risk. It's a little bit of a gamble, but if it pays off, he could make substantially more money on his next deal. So I see it as maybe a little bit of a short-term sacrifice on the dollars up front, but on the back end, he has the opportunity to make more money. And the LA Kings, I think they don't mind getting their guy for 5 years at 6.25 and maybe seeing how things unfold later on.
Yeah, and we'll see if he swings back to center, his natural position, after playing wing for the early part of his career in the National Hockey League. Can I circle back to the Jets with you, Frankie? And can I circle back to that 2020 draft? 10th overall, Cole Perfetti. He falls to the Jets. Everyone's excited in Winnipeg. He's a terrifically talented player. But he's had an up-and-down pro career. The Jets have been slow to bring him up. Rick Bowness made him a healthy scratch a lot last season. But I think there's a perception that Scott Arniel will give him more of an opportunity. Do you see this as a make-or-break type season for Perfetti, considering some of the opportunities that might be coming his way?
No, I don't, Jay. I don't see it as a make or break type season. He's too young. He's too young for it to be make or break. Like, there's so much runway for this player, considering the fact that he's going to get an expanded role. He's going to get more opportunity. He's probably going to play higher in the lineup. That means he's going to play with better players. So I just have a hard time, saying that young players who are still trying to kind of cut their teeth into the league, who started maybe a little bit too early because of the pandemic and COVID, he kind of got thrust into that role. I have a hard time saying that it's make or break time for him. I think Cole Perfetti, outstanding player, a lot of skill there. Like, there's a lot of opportunity for him to take the next step as his confidence continued to grow as the season went on. You could kind of see what he was able to do at the NHL level. He's a very intelligent player. Like, he has all the makings of a very good NHL player. He just has to, continue to build the confidence, continue to get more reps, more minutes. But it's not make or break time. The journey continues for Cole Perfetti. And if it's a step forward this year, that's great. Another step forward the year after that, it doesn't have to be boom or bust. It could be a slow build for Cole Perfetti, and that would lead to sustainable success for him as a National Hockey League player.
I know a lot of the Jets fan base agrees with you. They would love to see him get some more ice time this season. Frankie's going to be back after the commercial break, because he and I are going to finish up the final edition of the season of the juiciest moments of the past week.